Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we are going to finally finish up the multi-zone mini split system that I'm installing in my hangar home here behind me. We are going to start this video off with installing the outdoor unit. So this is it already installed, but I'm going to jump straight into how we built the stand, how we got it installed, how we plumbed the outdoor unit refrigerant lines back into the distribution boxes, and how we ran all the comm and power lines also to the outdoor unit. So let's get going. So I just got back from the metal store and I have bought this 3-inch box tube, and what we are going to start doing is building a platform to mount the outdoor unit on. So we have come over here and made some measurements on this outdoor unit, and what we are planning on doing is we're planning on building a box that is 41 by 17. So it'll look something like this. So this is kind of how we're going to build the box, and then there will be some post holes, some 3-foot long footers that go down into the ground right underneath there. And the bolt holes from the unit will line up, you know, here and here, here and here, for the mounts that we're going to make out of steel. So we also want no open boxes. So if this is box tube, this end would be open. So what our plan is going to be is these end caps here, we're going to make notched out like this, you know, we'll keep a 3x3 square from the box tube in order to weld this cap in shut. So let's stop wasting some time and get to it. So as you can see, my dad was able to make it out to help me install this outdoor unit, which was a huge help because it's very heavy and hard to move by myself. So we started out by making the 2 end caps. So you imagine that they were 17 inches finalized, but we cut them out to be 23 inches so that we could have those 3-inch overhangs on either side. Here I'm tacking it up. You can see how those overhangs were able to cap off the ends of the long pieces for the box. After we test fitted it on the unit itself, we drilled holes where the mounting bolts were going to go through, and we welded on the legs. The legs ended up being a little bit longer than I'd originally anticipated because the instructions required that the unit be so high off the ground. Well, okay, there it is. It is sitting on its side. As you can see, what we ended up building is fairly simple structure. It's just a rectangle base that the unit will bolt to, and it's got about 4-foot legs on the bottom. So the whole unit will be oriented this way, and these legs will go into the ground. So we'll go dig post holes, you know, between 3.5 feet. So this bottom plate will stick up out of the ground maybe 6 inches or so. And then all that post hole will be cemented into the ground. So it should give a real sturdy base for that to be bolted to. This was the first welding project I've done in a while. The welds came out okay. If it was going to be something you'd see, I'd probably grind them smooth, but in this instance I am just going to leave them the way they are, and I will prime and paint over them. Like the old farmer says, a grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover them with black paint and you'll never see them. So there is the base all set and leveled. I did not get to painting the top yet. I will paint the top in place, but the sides and the legs are painted all the way down. So those legs are 4 feet long, and of those 4-foot long legs, you got about 7 inches sticking up out of the ground. So that tells you how deep those post holes are, a little over 3 foot deep. The instructions for the outdoor unit said to make sure that the bottom of the outdoor unit was elevated a minimum of 12 inches off the ground. Here we're a little over 11, so I'm close to their minimum. And then the other dimension that they required was that from the back edge of the unit to the wall, you need a minimum of 12 inches there as well for airflow to be able to pull through the radiator fins and get kind of exhausted out the front by the fans. But there is the stand all made up, fabricated, and set in post holes. It should turn out rock solid once the concrete sets up. And we will paint the top and go ahead and set the outdoor unit on the base. And there it is, all done and painted. We have let the paint dry overnight and let the concrete and the posts set up overnight. So it is good, and we are ready to set the outdoor unit on top. Well, it wasn't light, but we got it up there. So there is the outdoor unit installed in its final resting place. So it is sitting there nice and level on the stand. It came with some rubber isolators here that we've mounted under all 4 feet. I just happened to have the perfect length bolts to run through it, so that all worked out good, and it is installed and ready to go. You'll also see here, yesterday we installed an isolator or a disconnect that will disconnect power to the outdoor unit from the breaker. We have run power from the breaker box to this on the inside, and the next step will be running power to the main unit. Well, welcome back to present day. So I actually had this whole outdoor unit mounted on the stand several weeks ago. Since those several weeks, I spent a couple weeks waiting on fittings to arrive in the mail. I needed fittings to tie this 3/4 inch vapor line back in to the outdoor unit from the distribution boxes. I was missing some 3/4 inch flare fittings, which I could not source any locally. I ended up having to order a bunch online. They were very expensive, and the lead time on them was quite a ways out. But as you can see here, these fittings were on here from the factory. These are the normal, test servicing fittings that the HVAC technician ties into. But I tied in the 3/8 line here and the 3/4 inch refrigerant line here. Now these come down here, they kick over and go into this conduit box where they tie through the wall of my house and through this 3-inch conduit. I decided the cleanest way to do it was to try and run it inside of this 3-inch conduit so the refrigerant lines are protected. I then filled this side of the 3-inch conduit and the other side from the inside with spray foam just to try and make it weatherproof and keep the water out of the house. But the 3/4 and 3/8 inch lines go through this conduit and tie back up into the distribution boxes, which are right here on the other side of this wall. And I also did the same thing here with the power and communication cables. You can see this kind of S-shaped conduit here. This is where the power and communication cables go through the wall. See if I can show it in here. And they tie in down here. So the conduit on the right is the power and communication lines, and the conduit on the left is power coming in from the breaker box. So the power from the breaker box ties in up here, and you'll remember, like I showed earlier, we already had power coming to this disconnect from the breaker box on the inside. So that's all run inside the walls back to the load center, which is on the other side of the meter over there. So we have big 8-gauge wire running all the way through here to this disconnect, and then comes over here and powers these units. It does whatever magic black box stuff goes on in here, and then it sends power and communications out from these lines back through that conduit into the distribution boxes hanging up on the wall. So that's kind of how it all got put together, just like that. Well, all right, so here is what it looks like all buttoned up. I think the way that I ran the refrigerant lines through the conduit and tied in the power lines on the back all came out looking very clean and professional. Certainly looks pretty good for not a professional HVAC tech. We can look at it from this other side here. You see everything installed. Another thing that I didn't mention before was the way that these outdoor units come from the factory is they have very little protection on the back. All it had were these main big wires. So you had these, I don't know if they are about 10-inch by 10-inch squares that were just exposed to the radiator fins on the back. So I went in and I added this chicken wire here across the back of the unit. And then here on this side, I tucked it in underneath this grill and kind of, you know, used wire ties to wire it up to this grill to protect all of the radiator fins, because they come from the factory with just hardly any protection. And I was real nervous about throwing rocks at it while I was mowing the lawn. I've actually heard people out here say what'll happen is hail will come down and bounce off the building and into the backs of your outdoor units and destroy those radiator fins. So I actually had some recommendations to go ahead and install that chicken wire. So at this point, everything is hooked up and working. So once again, I didn't get any of it on camera because I didn't want to ask the guys permission to film them or any of that kind of stuff. But I had, after I hooked all this up, I had a HVAC guy come out and pressure test all of my line sets. So he tied into this indoor unit and pressured up all the line sets throughout the whole house to 350 PSI. Everything held good. I say that, everything held good after we fixed all the leaks that I had. So after we fixed all the leaks that we had, he went ahead and drew it down to the 500 micron level, so pulled all of the air out of the system, purged the system with nitrogen, pulled them all down to 500 micron level again, so pulled a real good deep vac on the whole system, and he added 19 ounces of refrigerant, which is what I had calculated based off of the calculations book that came with the installation manual. As I said earlier, it is actually several weeks later, so unfortunately I can't show you the rest of the line set that is coming out through the wall because I've already covered it with insulation. So the house, I've insulated the whole house at this point, but the line set comes through some holes in the wall that are back here behind this insulation, and then comes back up through and comes up here back into the indoor units. You can see that I've completely insulated all of the line sets now. Tried to cover up any gaps in my insulation with tape. And here they are tied back into the distribution boxes, which is how I left it last episode. So with the passing test on the refrigerant system, we went ahead and ran the units in test mode. So I did turn them all on, and once again, didn't get any of it on film, but I did turn them all on and let it run for several hours, and these units blew nice and cold. After that, I went ahead and shut all of them down, and you can see that I've wrapped them in tape here. I wrapped them in plastic and taped up the plastic so that they don't get anything on them when they're doing drywall and paint. Also, everywhere, well, this wall, we insulated around the bathrooms for sound privacy, but I'll get to that in a later video. But anywhere where the refrigerant lines were in the walls, we went ahead and insulated too. So I went ahead and wrapped all the lines back up in insulation. I had left all the fittings exposed so that I could spray them with soapy water during the pressure test. After we got a good pressure test and ran them in test mode for a while, I rewrapped all the fittings and insulation, and I insulated all the voids in the walls where they're exposed. And I say actually my wife went through and insulated. So Kelly did an excellent job insulating these voids where the refrigerant is. You can see in here as well. And we're just trying to keep air and moisture away from those refrigerant lines so that they don't sweat and drip water behind the walls to ruin the sheetrock. And that is going to be it for this video. So it should actually be a pretty short and sweet one. Once again, I've been just in that mode where I was just rushing, trying to get ready for drywall, really trying to get drywall and paint and the flooring done, because once all that's done, we're going to go ahead and move into the house. So, and once again, like I kind of said earlier, a lot of this HVAC stuff was just downtime, weeks of me waiting on fittings. And when the fittings would show up, it'd only be like an hour of work to install that last piece or install that line. So it really wasn't just a whole lot of work that I did off camera, but you didn't get to see me button everything up and put the finishing touches on it. So in the next video, I'm going to jump in and try and cover all the stuff that that I did to get ready for drywall. And then the video after that will probably be a short video on insulation. And then hopefully here in the next few weeks, I will be releasing a video for drywall. I actually have drywall arriving tomorrow in real time. So hopefully drywall will be done in about a week. Paint will be done within the week after that. The flooring, we're actually going to do urethane on the slab for the floors, so that should only take a couple days to do. And once those three things are done, the drywall, the paint, and the urethane floors, we're actually going to go ahead and move into the house. So that is going to be fantastic. So we'll have a climate controlled place to work. We will continue using the trailer, which is there behind me, continue using the trailer as a bathroom while I get one of the bathrooms finished. But as soon as I get a bathroom done, the trailer goes up for sale and I can get that thing out of my shop, and we will live in the house as I do all the hanging the doors, hanging the trim, hanging the cabinets, building the kitchen, doing the bathrooms. We still got a long way to go, but it'll be a big difference when, like I said, you'll be in a climate controlled environment, which is huge. And we will have furniture and sleeping in a bed and all of that, a lot more room, instead of, you know, my wife and I and 2 cats living in a travel trailer. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned and I'll catch you on the next one.